Welcome to the Aligned Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Pooja Venkatraman. I'm a double Harvard grad, former BCG consultant, and now an executive coach for high achievers. On this podcast, we are going to tackle the 4 key things that you need to figure out in order to live a life of aligned ambition. Those 4 things are stress, productivity, performance, and purpose. We are going to make sure that you're driving your car in the direction that you actually want to go. That is the purpose part. We're also going to make sure that your progress along the road is consistent and effective. That's the productivity and performance part. And we're going to make sure that the fuel you're pouring into your tank isn't so noxious that it's filling your car with fumes and making the whole ride miserable. That is the stress part. Because if you can tackle those 4 things, stress, productivity, performance, and purpose, you can build the life and the career that you actually want. Not the life you think you're supposed to have, not the life that burns you out or doesn't fit quite right, but the life you actually want. One that fulfills your biggest ambitions and unleashes your fullest potential without sacrificing your sanity, your relationships, your authenticity, or your paycheck. A life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. That's what aligned ambition is all about. Let's get started. Hey guys, it is the day after Father's Day, and I would love to talk to you today about 3 lessons that every burnt out high achiever can learn from my dad. So if you listen to episode 476 of this podcast, it's called 5 Unintuitive Things My Parents Did to Raise 2 Daughters with 4 Ivy League Degrees. If you've listened to that episode, you know that I do not have the stereotypical Indian parents. The stereotypical Asian or Indian immigrant parents, it's usually like they're super strict, they're really conservative. There's this whole thing of like, you better get an A+ or we're going to beat you with a stick. You have to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or we're going to disown you from the family. And there's this whole thing of like, it's coming from a place of love, but it's coming from a place of fear as well, right? Where these like true stereotypical parents feel like we made this huge risk to come to this new place. This new country is so scary and so unknown. We've invested it all in your future. And so you better do these pathways that are going to lead to success. And it translates into this like rigidity and strictness about what you have to do in your career and how you have to live your life. That's the stereotype of like immigrant parents. My parents are 100% not that. And I talked about that and how it unintuitively actually created a lot of success for me and my sister in episode 476 of this podcast. So you can go check that out if you're curious. But today, since it's the day after Father's Day, I wanted to zoom in on my dad in particular. So here's the interesting thing about my dad. He has 2 very traditionally successful daughters, right? There's me. I went to Harvard College. I went to Harvard Business School. I worked at BCG. I worked with Clay Christensen. And my sister went to Princeton. She's graduating from Cambridge in the UK this summer. She worked at McKinsey. So there's all this like traditional success, traditional pathways that me and my sister have followed. My dad did not do that. It's not like he is a legacy at Harvard and then worked at McKinsey and then he was a partner and then he told us, this is how I found success. You should do the exact same thing, right? Or it's not like he was like, well, I have the legacy. I have the connections. Let me open all the doors for you and you guys can do those things, right? You've seen those people. You may even be that person. But that's not how he did things, right? That's not how he ended up with 2 traditionally successful daughters, as he himself also walked the path and kind of opened the door behind him as he was going. But at the same time, he's actually created a lot of traditional success for himself. He created generational wealth for us and our family from scratch. He has 2 really successful, really happy kids, me and my sister, who have a great relationship with him. He has an awesome relationship with my mom. They have an amazing marriage. He retired early and he has this amazing full life full of all these incredible hobbies. So he created traditional success for himself, but he didn't create it in the traditional way. He found the intersection between external success and internal fulfillment. He found a way to get all the goals he wanted and fulfill all the obligations he wanted to fulfill and do it his own way in a way that felt good to him. So how did he do that? That's what these 3 lessons are all about. Lesson number 1, always ask yourself, what's my answer to the case? What is my perspective on the situation? So my dad is a fiercely independent thinker. If someone tells him this is what you're supposed to do, this is what's possible here, this is how we've always done things, all of these like external shoulds and rules about what's possible or what you're supposed to do, his perspective is like, that's interesting. let me now think about it for myself, right? That is how he's always been. I'll give you a little example that I thought really showcased this. We have a house in India as well. We were building it in kind of 2019, 2020. And as we were kind of, building it, my dad was very involved. And there was this particular thing with the mosquito nets on the windows, right? India has lots of mosquitoes. So all the windows need mosquito nets so that you don't get eaten alive inside the house. And there was this particular way that this is how the builders did it. You always install the mosquito nets in this way. And my dad was like, I don't love this. I feel like there could be a better way to do it. This doesn't look so good. I have some ideas for different ways that we could install it that I think would look more elegant and would look better. Everybody told him that his way was impossible. The builders who literally professionally build these houses were like, no, that's completely impossible. Your idea doesn't make any sense. The neighbors were like, no, we've never heard of that. No one else does that. That's not possible. Every single person told him, your design doesn't make any sense. It's not possible. That's not how we do things. We've always done things this way. And we don't think your thing is possible. And he just kept being like, no, I think we can do it this way. I think this works. I think this works. And I think it's going to be better. And he just persistently kept being like, but are you sure? But what about this? Well, let's try this. And by the end, it worked. It totally freaking worked. And I will never forget, our neighbors, all the neighbors that were like, this is impossible. You can't do this. Why are you slowing things down? They came back around and they were like, how did you do that? Can you tell us? Can you explain to us so we can do it too? Which is just the most classic, my dad situation where he'll have an idea and everyone around him will be like, that doesn't make any sense. That's never going to work. That's wrong. And he'll just keep going and going and going until everybody else is like, oh, so now actually, can you give us your top 10 tips on how you do that? Can you give us your roadmap of how to do it? It's one of the things that inspired me when I started my business, where I was like, okay, everyone else can tell me this isn't going to work. There's going to come a day, all you guys are going to be coming to me being like, how did you do this? And I was like, I'm ready for the day because I know what I'm doing. I'm following my own answer, right? And so my dad does this not just tactically, right, with specific mechanical things, right? How do you install a mosquito net? But he also does this philosophically, right? So for example, when we came to the US, there's a big tradition, or some, immigrant families, their whole kind of thing is hey, you should keep living at home. Right? You should live at home. Even when you're in college, you should continue to live at home. And if you're a woman, live at home until you're married, right? Not every single family is that way, but that can be a prominent way of living, or a prominent value that people can have. And that was pretty prevalent in our communities. And my dad was like, no, I don't think that makes sense. I think they should be independent. I think they should learn how to live by themselves. I think they should go live in the dorm. I don't think they should commute from home for school. And then once they're done, they should get apartments and move to cities, and they don't have to live at home until they're married. They should have independent lives, which doesn't sound crazy, I think, for an American mindset. But in some of the immigrant communities that I'm in, that can actually be pretty radical, right? Or certainly it's not the norm. There can be a big thing of no, but this is what we do. And this is how we preserve our culture, in this new scary place. And it's not just tactically, it's also just philosophically and with big picture questions. My dad has this ability to be I hear you. I get it. I get that that's the norm. I get that that's what everyone's doing. I get that that's what everyone else thinks is the right answer. They're super convinced and they have all their strong arguments for why that's the right answer. But here's what I think. And I think my way's better and I'm going to do it anyway. Right. And so the lesson for you is to ask yourself that question. What do you think? What is your answer to the case? What do you think the right answer is? What's your perspective? Let me give you some examples of when this isn't happening so you can catch yourself when this happens, right? This could be a situation just even in your job, the job that you're in right now. Let's say there's a problem that's come up. People are trying to figure out how to solve it. Maybe senior people have gotten involved to be how do we figure this out? Which pathway should we take? And have you ever had this situation where you have an answer in your head of how the problem should be solved, but you don't say it because you're well, there's all these other people involved that are senior and they know what they're doing. And they're not kind of coming to the answer that's in my head. It seems kind of obvious to me, but no one else is saying it. So I must be missing something. Right? So you just don't say anything. And then eventually the group gets to the answer that you thought was the right answer all along. Right? If you ever had that happen and you're wait, what? That was what I thought in the beginning. I just assumed I was wrong because no one else was saying that. But you guys all got there ultimately. It just took longer. Right? That's an example of you not trusting your own answer to the case and not being well, hey guys, this is what I think. What do you think? So could it be in a situation in your job itself? It also could be a situation about do you like your job? Do you want to stay in your job? Right? So sometimes I'll hear from people, well, objectively, I have a great job. Like on paper, this job is amazing. Anyone else would be super jealous of this situation. I really should appreciate it more. People would think I'm crazy for wanting to get out of here, right? And that's just a version of saying everyone else's answer about the situation is right and my answer is wrong, right? Because chances are you probably don't think that about yourself, right? You probably are thinking about your job, well, but it doesn't feel perfect to me. And here's all the things that aren't working. And like on paper, it's this, but in reality, it's this. But if you hear yourself saying that, well, like, people would think I'm crazy. Like it's objectively so great. And like people would be so jealous. People would kill for this job. But there's also something in your head being like, but I don't love this. And I'm thinking of making a change. It's another moment for you to be like, what's my answer to the case? Right. And then this can also show up for people as they're trying to figure out what's next, right? If they've decided, okay, I definitely want to leave, but they're trying to get clear on what's next, there can be so much like pressure or just like, here's what people know, quote unquote, know the right answer is, right? Where it's like, well, obviously you should get into AI, right? So especially if you're starting a company, it has to be an AI related company. I mean, that's what's hot right now. It's such a gold rush, right? Or if you're not starting your own company, but you're, going, you're like in big tech, like just go to one of these, like go to OpenAI, go to Anthropic, lock in that, grind it out, lock in the equity, and then you'll be set for life, right? There'll be all these things where it's like, people will tell you as if it's the obvious right answer, right? Like you'd be dumb to do anything different. Those are those situations where this lesson really comes into play. And I wanted to kind of bring it to life for you so you can notice when your brain is really tempted to say, other people know better than me. Other people are telling me this is the right answer. And like, I don't want to be dumb. I don't want to be stupid. Like, I don't want to just like miss the boat. So I better just do what they're telling me to do. That's your moment to apply this lesson, to be like, okay, but hang on, what do I think? Be like my dad, right? Be like a little contrarian and be like, okay, I hear you. But like, let me turn my brain on. What do I think? And maybe I'll fight for my right answer until you guys are coming to me asking me, hey, how did you do that? And can you help me do what you did? So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is own what you want. So lesson number one is all about your intellectual answer to the case, right? It's like what you think is the right answer in a particular situation. Lesson two isn't about right or wrong. Lesson two is about what you want. It's what you think is cool or interesting to spend your time on or pursue or prioritize or set as a goal. And it's not that anyone else is right or wrong. It's not that everyone else should do it or no one else should do it. It's more just like, well, I think this is cool. You don't have to think this is cool. You can have different priorities. You can have different preferences or desires, but I think this is cool. Like this is for me and I'm going to go for it. Even if it's not for you, it's for me and I'm going to go for it. So for a lot of high achievers, some of us, maybe a lot of us have a little bit of a hangover from being nerds in middle school, in high school, maybe not feeling like the coolest people in the room for what we liked. So we can feel a little shy, right? About owning what we want, even just internally admitting to ourselves and owning it 100% inside without caveating, without dismissing it, without being like, oh, like this is kind of stupid, but like this is what I like, right? It can be hard to even own it internally. It can feel like you're selfish. It can feel like you're self-indulgent. It can feel like you're being silly or stupid. And then especially if no one else is doing it, if no one else is into it, if other people don't seem to get it, it can feel really hard to own what you want, to be like, no, I think this is really cool, right? It's not that it's right or wrong, but I think it's cool and I want to pursue it. So not my dad. My dad is the king of dreams and schemes and hobbies that nobody else has heard of. Nobody else gets. He's the first one. It's like he's like the anti-bandwagon, right? He's the first one who's doing something. And it'll often be like, oh, like we don't know anyone else is doing that. We have no familiarity with that. Where did you get that idea? And then he shows people how cool it is by actually getting into it. This has happened for him through a variety of hobbies. He got super into building our home theater system and into speaker systems. He got really into photography. He's really into sailing right now. But he has this consistent thing where he will be the first one in our family, the first one in our peer group, the first one in our community to just get really into something cool, into like a cool pursuit. And other people will be like, I don't know what that is. Like, how did you get into that? I don't really get it. Like, how does that work? Right? Like, there's no one to follow, right? There's no social momentum around it whatsoever. But he's like, I think it's cool, so I'm going to go do it. And then often it pulls other people along, right? And he'll be the first mover and other people will be like, oh, that's actually really cool too. Like, I also want to do it. So from a burnout perspective, right, for high achievers, it's not just about your hobbies. My suspicion is your top priority isn't like sorting out your hobbies and making them the most fun. But I think this also applies to what you want your life and your career to look like, what you want to prioritize and what you want to not prioritize. Even if other people are making different prioritization decisions for you to really own for yourself, but I prioritize things this way. Right. And this is something my dad has done really well for me is he really helps and encourages me to live a life according to my own priorities, not according to everyone else's or not what like other people are doing, but to really, he always is like, you should do what you want. Let me give you a concrete example. I recently did an assessment, which I loved, by the way. I recommend it. It's called the Values Bridge. You can just go to valuesbridge.com and take the assessment for free. But what they do is they have 16 values, right? Like things that that a person could value or prioritize and kind of use as like core, kind of like they organize their life, right, around these values. And so they have 16 of them total. And then you run through this 20-minute assessment. And then it tells you, well, here's your ranking. Right? According to how you answer these questions, these are your top 5, and then these are your medium 5 to 7, and then these are your like peripheral values. Like for you, like we're just like, you don't even have to brainstorm on your own what your values are. We'll just tell you. We'll ask you questions and we'll tell you, based on the patterns of what people tend to value. And if you get my little values bridge assessment, one of the things that you'll notice, which I wasn't super surprised by, is, like work, success, ambition, helping people, all are like very top values for me, which is why I do the work I do. And I love it so much. And one of my very, very low priority values is being in a romantic relationship. And it's not to say I don't want to be in a romantic relationship. I enjoy romantic relationships. They're great. I don't hate love, any of those things. But it really resonated with me when I saw that, where it was like, hey, you're someone who this is not a driving force of a priority for you. You don't organize your life around getting into or maintaining a romantic relationship. And you're not someone who like, life doesn't feel right. You don't feel like yourself. You don't feel fulfilled unless and until you have that romantic partner in your life and you guys are like as a unit, like building a life together. It's not a bad thing to have that value, by the way, right? I'm not trying to say that anyone who does value that is like insecure or any of those things. The great thing about values is like, you get to prioritize which ones you want. They're all good. There's no like better ones. There's no bad ones, right? It's just your choice for which ones you want to prioritize. But I remember seeing that and being like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's why I have deprioritized dating. It's not that I never want to be in a relationship. It's not that I hate people or hate love, but I'm totally honest with myself. Unlike I think a lot of people, I'm going to take or leave it with a romantic relationship. Like I don't need one. And therefore, I don't really feel like prioritizing like all the work, like dating to find one, right? And then I give that example because this is something where my dad did not need to see that assessment. He has always been on my side about this. He has always been like, if you want to be in a relationship, that's awesome. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. If you want me to like meet some of these guys and vet them, I'm happy to do that. And he's like, if you don't want to be in a relationship, if you don't want to date, if you don't want to prioritize this, that's totally fine. And he's always been like, I remember I actually did a little like dating course once, and they asked you like, they told you, ask your friends and family why they think you're still single so that we can like diagnose what's going on with you. Like we can diagnose why you're still single by crowdsourcing feedback from your friends and family. We'll tell you what you're doing wrong, that you're still single. And I remember I asked my dad like that question and he gave the best answer, which was, he was like, I refuse to consider it a problem that you're single. He was like, I reject the premise of the question. I reject the idea of diagnosing why this is happening because I don't think this is a problem to begin with, right? And it is so wonderful to get that kind of support. But it's really a feature of this lesson number 2, which is like own what you want, whether it is just a hobby that you like that no one else gets, or whether it's as big as these are my priorities, right? If I'm really, really honest with myself, if I'm really designing the life and the career I want, these are the things that I would prioritize. These would be the organizing principles. This is what I would put more time on. And these are the things that honestly other people care about them and good for them. And that's great, but they're not top priorities for me. And I'm going to own it. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to ask what's wrong with me. I'm not going to compare and despair with people who have totally different priorities than I do. I'm going to be like, this is what I want. And I'm going to build according to that blueprint and let everybody else build according to their blueprint. Because at the end of the day, I'm the only one that's got to live my life. So it better actually be that life that I want to live. So that's lesson number 2, own what you want. Lesson number 3 is go boldly and experimentally into the unknown. So a lot of like middle-aged men, a lot of dads, right, have no idea what's going on with Gen Z, with pop culture, with technology, et cetera. That can be a bit of a stereotype, right? Is like the clueless middle-aged person who just has no clue what's happening. Not my dad. My dad is more on top of memes, pop culture, pop music, AI, technology than me or my sister. He is frequently explaining like memes, songs, and pop culture to us and then being like, oh, how did you guys not hear about this? And we're like, how do you know about this? We don't even know about these things, right? He is so on the cutting edge. He has been having so much fun with AI. He's been building apps. He's been building tools. He's done tons of stuff with it. If you're on my email newsletter, you may not know this if you only listen to the podcast, but I have an email newsletter, and every Thursday, the podcast comes out on Monday. And then on Thursday, I send out a deck. It's like a PowerPoint summary of the concept I talked about in the podcast. My dad makes that. He figured out how to make, I don't make that. Okay. I tried. It was so bad. The output I came up with was so bad. My dad makes that. He figured out the workflow. It looks gorgeous every time. That comes from my dad. So many like middle-aged people, so many people in general are scared of like what's new and what's unknown, and they want to stay in their house and watch cable TV and like reminisce about the good old days. Not him. Right? My dad is so excited about new things. He wants to go boldly and experimentally into the unknown, and he wants to like try stuff and see what's going on. So he's not like reading think pieces, right, about AI or about Gen Z or about what's going on in culture. He's like, let me do it. Let me build an app. Let me build a tool. Let me use this tool to like do this. Let me use it to do that. Let me actually like listen to the music that people are talking about. Let me actually engage with the content that people are talking about. So he's not like intellectualizing it or reading think pieces about it. He was like, let's get in there. Let's get in there and see what's actually happening and see what I think about it. So if you are a burnt out high achiever, right, who knows that something needs to change in your career, but you don't know what it is yet, right, your brain is going to want to tell you, but I want to know all the right answers, and I want to know exactly how the path is going to play out before I get started. Right. And I know I want the guarantee that it's going to turn out well before I get started, because I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to look stupid, and I don't want to get rejected, and I don't want to fail. And I get it. I so get it. There's so much security in just being given a pathway and knocking it out of the park. That is what has brought us so much success so far, is executing well on a really well-known pathway. And when the pathway is known, it does feel stupid to like waste your time or to fail. And it can feel very scary to try to chart an unknown pathway when you're used to clear pathways with a high chance of success. But the truth is, very small portions of the world have these like well-carved, well-lit, high chance of success pathways that you can just walk down. And parts of the world have uncarved, unknown pathways to success. Nobody knows the right answer. Nobody knows how to get there, especially with how fast technology is moving. And in that situation where it's truly unknown, the only way you're to figure it out is to try stuff and see what happens. It's just to start driving. You can only see as far as your headlights can shine, but if you just keep driving, you can drive for hundreds of miles and get to the destination, even though all the while your headlights only shine 20 feet ahead of you, right? But you have to get started driving in order to figure it out. And so the lesson for my dad is not only to do that, right? Not only to like actually engage and experiment and try, and not like wait for like, okay, I know all the answers and I know success is going to be guaranteed and I know that it's all going to turn out well. So then I'll start investing effort, right? But instead to be like, let's try, let's get started, let's invest the effort and then see how it turns out. It's not only to do that, but to have fun with it, right? Not to force yourself, not to make it another homework assignment, not to make it another way to beat yourself up, but to be like, let's have fun. It's fun. It's fun to explore new things. It's fun to see what's happening in the world. It's fun to try something for real, to get into the nitty gritty and actually build something versus just think about it in theory. It's fun to just get in there and start figuring things out and trying things even when you don't know what the outcome's going to be. So that's lesson number 3. So I want to emphasize again, right? It's not like my dad followed these 3 lessons and then the outcome is like, well, yeah, he's kind of this like hippie that like never held a steady job and like never really had any success, but like he sure loved his life. That's not the case. He had both, right? He still has both. He was tremendously traditionally successful, as I talked about, and he had a lot of fun. And he like charted the path his own way. He actually enjoyed the journey and still does, and has a sense of internal fulfillment as well as having the external success. And so I know what it's like to be a burnt out or dissatisfied high achiever. I know what is probably going on in your brain, right? Where on the one hand, your brain is like, something about my situation is not working. I know something needs to change. But on the other hand, your brain is like, oh, but like other people are telling me that like I'm in the right place and like I can't just indulge myself by following my wants, and I should stick to like what's familiar and what's known, and I should make sure I have a good guarantee of success before I make any changes, because if I do what people are telling me is right and I like do what I'm supposed to do and I do what everyone else is doing and I stick to what's familiar and known, I will be safe, I will be secure, and I will be successful, right? And what I'm telling you is you have to flip those rules upside down. You have to ask, what's my answer to the case? What's my perspective on the situation? What do I think the right answer is? Not what everyone else says the right answer is. What's my right answer? And then what do I want, right? How can I own what I want, even if other people want different things? And that's totally fine. They can prioritize how they want, but this is how I want to prioritize. This is what my wants are, and I'm going to own them. And then you have to go boldly and experimentally into the unknown, not waiting until you're sure that it's the right next step and you're sure it's all going to pan out and you're not going to waste your time and it's going to be high ROI, right? Before you start to invest. Instead, you have to just go. get started, and have fun with it. Those are the lessons that you can learn from my dad about how to create a career that is both successful and fulfilling, right? Because I know that voice inside you. I have that same voice. You don't want to trade off on either one of them. You don't just want a bunch of frou-frou fulfillment with no success. And you also don't want a bunch of like soulless success with no fulfillment. You're actually looking for both at the same time. And I know that you actually can have them. This is how you do it. So before I wrap up this podcast episode, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next after this episode ends, right? And I want to warn you about it before it happens so that you're not surprised and so you're not disappointed. So what's going to happen after this podcast episode ends for you, right? First, you're going to feel the glow of what I've been talking about. You're going to feel inspired. You're going to feel like you had a kick in your pants. You're going to be like, oh, like I want to do this. I want to live this way. I want to figure it out for a few hours, maybe even the rest of the day. You're going to feel the glow. And then for the next couple of days, maybe for like the rest of the week, you'll like kind of remember it. You'll kind of have that energy still. You'll be like, yeah, okay, there's like something that she told me to do. There were like some lessons and I kind of felt like inspired. Yeah, that was good. That was good. I guarantee you by like next Monday, you would have forgotten that you listened to this, right? Or you only have a vague memory. And certainly by the time we get to like the end, like a week, a month from now, my guess is you're going to be feeling exactly how you're feeling right now. And you will have very little memory of even having listened to this episode and even having gotten the kick in the pants, right? Now, I don't tell you that to scare you or to tell you that you're doing anything wrong. This is normal. This is 100% normal. This is what happens after you get an infusion of hope and inspiration and guidance, right? And the reason that happens after you get that infusion is not because you're lazy. It's not because you're doing a bad job. It's not because I'm doing a bad job, right? It's just because that infusion of hope and inspiration and guidance is only step one. It can get you started. It can give you a little kick in your pants, but it can't get you over the finish line. That first infusion of hope and inspiration, it fades. That is normal. What can carry you over the finish line, what you actually need to get all the way across is dedicated time and space to actually work on creating the life that you want. You need frameworks and tools to help you make strong decisions, solve these problems, get clear on what you want to do next, and actually make it happen. These are problems that people face again and again. You are not the first one to encounter these things. So there are frameworks and tools that you can use to guide you forward. And you need thought partnership and expertise. You need someone who can accelerate the problem solving process. So you're not tinkering away with this for 5 years. Talk to someone who does this all day long. Someone like me, someone who talks to dozens, if not hundreds of high achievers all the time, who has been solving this problem for thousands of hours with so many people. I've got the pattern recognition. I've got the expertise. I know which tool to pull out at the right moment, and it's going to accelerate the process so much for you. That all those things, right? Time and space, frameworks and tools, and thought partnership and expertise. That's what you need to actually carry you all the way through to get over the finish line and actually build that career that is both successful and fulfilling, not just like feel for 30 minutes, like, oh my gosh, that could be possible. And wouldn't it be awesome, right? Like if it was. So I want you to not shortchange yourself, right? Don't not give yourself the resources and the time and the dedication that you actually need. Don't beat yourself up for not being able to just get that one shot of inspiration and then ride it for 6 months. None of us can. All of us are too busy. All of us have too many constraints. All of us have too much stuff going on for one podcast episode to completely change your life. But a podcast episode can certainly nudge you to then do the things that are going to change your life. You need that time and structure, and then you need the frameworks and tools, and you need the accelerant. You need the thought partner who can get you moving through this fast. So if you don't want this to be that one little blip of inspiration that fades away, right? If you hearing me describe that thing of like, hey, by the end of the week, you're barely going to remember this. And by next month, you're going to completely forget this. And that makes you feel sad or mad or dispirited, right? If you're like, no, I actually want to do something about this. I don't want to just like ride the little wave of inspiration and then keep doing exactly what I'm doing. If that's how you feel, I want you to book your free career audit with me at the link in the episode description. What we're going to do, we're going to spend an hour together. We're going to do a deep dive on your career and really understand what's working and what's not working for you today. And then I'm going to give you my diagnosis. I'm going to tell you, here's what I think is really going on. Here's what I think is holding you back. And I'm going to give you my solution pathway. I'm going to be like, here's what I think you actually need to do to solve this problem, build the career that you actually want that is externally successful and internally fulfilling. Here's exactly what I think you should do. And then we'll talk about how to actually implement that plan step by step by step, and whether working together to do that could actually be a really great fit. And what you are going to walk away with, you're going to get a ton of clarity, because you're going to be like, oh my God, this is what's actually going on, right? You are going to get relief. You are going to realize I am not alone. The situation I'm in is very, very normal. Lots of people face it. Nothing's going wrong here. And you're going to have a game plan for how to get out and how to build the career that you actually want. So book your call today. I can't wait for you to get that clarity, get that relief, and get that game plan. The link to book it is in the episode description, and I cannot wait to talk to you. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Aligned Ambition podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and share this podcast with anyone you know that you think could use it. If you'd like to explore working together in a one-on-one coaching engagement with me, book a free consult call at poojavcoaching.com/contact. You can grab that link in the episode description. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or topics you want me to cover in this podcast, shoot me an email at pooja@poojavcoaching.com. You can grab that in the episode description too. Talk to you soon.